Welcome to the CANary Cast, the official podcast of the Mr. Canary Company. Before we get started today, please do me a favor. Comment, like, and subscribe to receive notifications every time we drop a new episode. This helps new people find the podcast and grows our reach. Here we go, episode number 4, The Evolution of Work at the Arc of Greater Boone County with Christy Kincaid Shores. I'm so excited for our first interview episode, and who better to feature than the Arc of Greater Boone County's own case coordinator, Christy Kincaid Shores. Christy is one of the most tenured members of the team here at the Arc of Greater Boone County, and she's worn many different hats during her time here. She's a wealth of knowledge, and no doubt we will cover a lot of ground today. In particular, Christy's here to shed some light on how work at the Arc of Greater Boone County has evolved over the past decade. With no further ado, welcome to the CANary Cast, Christy.
Thank you.
So when did you get started at the Arc of Greater Boone County?
I came in on October of 2012.
Okay. And what would you say got you interested in human services work?
When I was in high school, I helped teach the special needs program, and so that's where it all started and got me hooked on people with disabilities and looking towards that journey.
Yeah. So I guess early on, what was it about working with people with disabilities that just made you feel at home, made you feel comfortable?
I don't think it was really anything in particular. I just felt a comfort, and I was learning every day from someone. Just the act of being able to help someone learn something new helped with that. And then from high school, I went on to start helping with Special Olympics, and that's where it really kicked in. After doing 3 or 4 years in Special Olympics, I started working at a job for a group home, and I stayed at that job for 10 years until I came here to the ARC, and I've been here for about 13.
Okay. And we'll dive in a little more to the different roles you've had here at the Arc of Greater Boone County, but what was that transition like, going from the residential side of disability services to more of the day services programming side?
The hours typically are harder at a group home. You're working evenings, nights. Coming here, it's days, weekends free.
Yeah, one of the things that stands out to me, having no experience with disability services, just coming in on the sheltered work contractor side of things, is, obviously we work closely with group home partners here at the Arc of Greater Boone County. So I can imagine that really set you up well to be able to empathize with some of the challenges that group home providers face, and, kind of gives you a nice vantage point to be able to relate to them, right? Because sometimes it can feel like, a push and pull between, what would be best for the people we support while they're here with us during the day, but then, there's balancing considerations that have to be made for the residential care providers. And having played in both worlds, I imagine that's helpful for you now in your role as a case coordinator. Can you kind of tell us what you're currently doing in that role?
Right now in the case coordinator role, I for all the people we serve that are facility based, I run quarterly meetings, yearly meetings, and so person-centered planning, trying to find goals that meet the people we serve for them and not for the people that surround them,
Yeah.
but actually what their goal in life would be. So that's my main job right now, is trying to facilitate that.
That's great. So it's really about making sure that the people we support, that their voice is the primary consideration
Correct.
when we're helping them design supports that help them ultimately reach those life goals you were talking about. For anyone who's not familiar, would you mind explaining a little more about person-centered planning? Like, what's the thought behind that? What is it at the root?
The root is just to give the person we serve the feeling of accomplishment for themselves, for things that they want out of life for their life, not what is good for maybe a guardian or their group home or people that are involved in their care.
Yeah.
We want to support their feelings for what they need and want first.
Absolutely. So, for our listeners, I think one of the hardest things to grasp is just the broad spectrum of abilities and needs of the people we support. And so, would you mind giving a couple examples of what some typical goals are for the people we support? What kind of things are they striving for in life that you hear often when you're meeting with them?
The two things that I hear the most often when we work together as a team is I would like a community job and I want to go out into the community. I want to be a part of my community. I'd like to explore my community. So those are the two main things that I hear from just about everyone, no
Yeah.
matter the disability level.
No, and honestly,
Inclusion is huge for
yes. And it's easy to be a buzzword. It's a totally different animal to incorporate it into the entire ethos of an organization and making everything about that, right? So uh, that leads me in really well to, kind of where I want this conversation to go today. Can you kind of talk the listeners through what on-site work services looked like here at the Arc around the time you started back in 2017? Uh, Kind of give us an example of what a typical day as a participant in the sheltered workshop would look like.
well, we would uh I think at that time our biggest contract was Hendrickson. So we did several different jobs for Hendrickson and we would maintain those. There were a few other jobs. We had a work crew prior to that who went out in the community and did cleaning for several different companies in town. Um, so basically, what we could get,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Whatever the community would trust us to do, um, which has thankfully changed, right?
yeah,
So we have brought bigger contracts in, and community is starting to see the job that can be done here.
yeah. Early on, is it fair to say that a lot of what the sheltered workshop here at the Arc of Greater Boone County, a lot of the work we had was kind of kitting work, light assembly. Is that fair to say? Kind of,
Correct. So like
one or two
folding
step.
boxes,
Yeah.
things that people necessarily didn't want to do at other jobs,
Mhm.
were sent for us to do, which was great because it gave us an opportunity to show that we're very capable of handling those jobs.
Yeah. And the thought behind sheltered work, right, was to
Mhm.
kind of be a way to ease into developing job skills that would then hopefully help somebody transfer out to community integrated employment. That was
Correct. The main
always
goal.
the hope, right? So, um, I guess just generally, and I know the answer to this, so I'm being careful how I phrase it. Was it typical to have a routine schedule for sheltered work, or was it typically feast or famine?
Feast or famine, definitely. We would either be working weekends, both days, Saturday, Sunday, evenings, trying to get orders out or um, trying to find things for everyone to do.
Yeah,
So that was a pretty difficult time most of the time because everybody wants to work.
yeah.
Everyone wants to earn that paycheck and be productive in their day. Um, so yeah, definitely feast or famine.
So how would you go about deciding where folks, were best situated on a particular job task? Like what did that evaluation look like? How did staff play a role in coming alongside of the people we support to get the job done? Can you just kind of share a little bit of if somebody would just, duck into the workshop on a random Tuesday at 11 a.m., what would they see happening? How would people be assigned to certain workstations? What did that process look like?
Well, typically to start, choice. So if somebody came in and said that they would like to do, I don't know, flex capping,
Yeah.
or if they wanted to use the filling machine, we would automatically, start there because that was their choice. If that didn't work out, we would just move on. Different jobs until they found the job that they did well and that they liked.
Yeah. Fair enough. Um, do you remember what it was like working with this crazy bird feeding company that was one of the sheltered work contracts? What was the Mr. Canary Arc of Greater Boone County relationship like from your side of the equation in those early years?
Um, well, I think that from the beginning, it's been really good. I feel like the team has always connected and done well together. Uh, it was crazy coming in uh, because of the orders that we weren't used to, such huge orders.
Yeah.
And just trying to find a rhythm and a way to get those orders done and out the door was interesting for
Yeah.
sure.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, rhythm's the key word, right?
Yeah.
Because you talked, choice was one part of the equation, right? As each participant could choose literally from a moment to moment basis whether they wanted to continue working in that particular workstation at that particular time. But then you also had the reality that, as is typical in most sheltered workshops, there's not a set expectation of individuals need to be here at work for this particular shift. It wasn't so much as shifts, it was work was available from, this time in the morning to this time in the afternoon. And, if the person was free, then they were invited to come work. But, if somebody had a doctor's appointment, there wasn't, the group home provider didn't have the expectation, right, of scheduling around that work. And so it was pretty common where, somebody could show up saying, an hour and a half into the workday and say, hey, so and so's got a dentist appointment. I need them and they're not going to be back the rest of the day. So rhythm is hard to come
Yes.
by
Yep.
when you're employees, because that person could be working in a critical workstation.
Yeah. When you're down 5 people because they had haircuts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
So,
it was the nature of the format, right?
mhm.
And there's good and bad with every format, but I think that certainly had to be challenging from your position of, especially in the years when you were directly over the workshop, because, Mr. CANary would come to you with basically a production quota and a
Mhm.
timeline assigned to it. And we'd be hoping and praying that you guys could hit it. And then it was up to you to make it happen. And, we were mostly sheltered from the reality of, what that chaos looked like of having people, an entire house would disappear for haircuts. And that meant, on a day where you should be able to get 2 pallets completed, it meant you got 1. And so, I think hindsight's 2020, right? I
Mhm.
think, from where I'm sitting today, I feel bad about not necessarily grasping the reality of those challenges for you guys and not helping
You're faced
come
with
up with
them now.
solutions. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. I said that in episode number 2. I'm a little bit like the dog that caught the car. So now I can empathize a lot
And
better
then
with
I
that.
have Nate calling saying, "Can you do the inventory real quick? I need to know how many
Right,
because I
right.
got to
It's
place an order."
well, and sometimes I tell you
Yeah.
that. Other times I would kind of conceal the fact that, oh no, we just got a 6-figure order unexpectedly from Walmart, and I'm not sure we're going to have the inventory and the lead time to get that turned around. But of course, I always tried to come up with the best news possible before giving you the official
Well, and
bad
that's a
news.
huge thing too now of being in control of that, right?
Yeah.
Like we had no control over inventory and just crazy,
Well,
crazy
yeah,
times.
and that's a
Yeah.
reality when you're a not-for-profit running a sheltered workshop, coordinating with a for-profit company. The for-profit, everything, all the incentives are for them to keep inventory as low as possible with the shortest possible turnaround from receiving an order to fulfilling it. So from Mr. CANary's standpoint, feast or famine was good business. But from the Arc of Greater Boone County standpoint, that made planning and serving the people supported here difficult. So I think it's certainly something that we can point to now, having gone through this transformation away from sheltered work to competitive employment. And we can say, okay, it's nice to not have that level of chaos.
Yeah, we've
Things still
learned.
come up,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
we still have surprises that we have to deal with, but with the structural changes, it's certainly made that easier when that happens.
True. And the growth has been awesome. Yeah.
Christy, when you were in charge of the sheltered workshop here at the Arc of Greater Boone County, what were you most proud of with that program back then?
I guess when things are running well, it's an amazing thing to see when the work is just flowing, people are doing the job, uh, just to watch the flow. Because it's amazing what we can accomplish when we're all working together, and the finished product is really it's really neat to see how that process works.
Absolutely. Like, I don't think a lot of people stop to frame it this way, but the reality is, since 2016, this little workshop at the Arc of Greater Boone County has supplied some of the largest retailers on the planet.
Mhm.
And I'll take this moment to brag on you guys, because you want to talk about a crazy accomplishment. During COVID lockdowns in 2020, when everybody all of a sudden decided bird feeding was cool because they had no other options in front of them, we saw a simultaneous increase in demand for bird feeders at the exact time that we had a real reduction in labor force, because we had a lot of individuals who were understandably concerned for their health. They weren't coming to the Arc of Greater Boone County, and we had to figure out how to make more product with fewer people, which was an incredible challenge. And you guys met it so well. To my knowledge, based on my in-store observations of when I would go into Walmart stores and look at what was stocked out, Mr. CANary was one of the last, if not the last, suppliers of wild bird feeding products in Walmart to stock out. And we didn't stock out until the late summer of 2020, when we had a lot of large multinational corporation competitors who, because they're relying on overseas labor, they couldn't respond the way we could, even given the challenges we had. So I just want to take a minute to thank you for that moment, because I
You're
know
welcome. It
you
was crazy
guys
times for everyone.
you guys did an incredible job, and I don't think people would really believe what we've accomplished over the years here
Well,
with
one of
this
the
little company.
craziest things that I can remember is the Good Morning America socks.
Yeah, tell us about that one.
That order was insane
Yeah.
to meet. We worked really hard on that order, um, but we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's been one of the great things about this team from the beginning, is when we get met with an unexpected challenge, like, people could just throw a hissy fit and refuse to help. And I'm sure that's part of the grieving process, right? Like,
Yep.
nobody's happy to see that their weekend plans have to get canceled to hit this order. But the reality is, this team has always stepped up to do that. I know that we have done that when we've run a Mother's Day promotion, doing displays in Meyer. We've done that with surprise Walmart orders. We did that through COVID. We did that through Good Morning America. So it really helped Mr. CANary to know that we had a team dedicated enough that if we got a good opportunity, your response would be, we're going to make that happen. We don't know how, it's not going to be easy, but we're going to rally together and we're going to make it happen. So that was truly a great opportunity for me to experience on the customer side of the sheltered workshop all those years. Is it didn't feel like we were a customer. It genuinely felt like we were partners in a more meaningful way than a typical
Absolutely. The
contract.
growth and our closeness, we all just came together to make those things happen.
Yeah.
One without the other wouldn't have worked.
No. So, we talked about the good of, what you experienced during your time over the workshop. Thinking back to that time, what did you most want to see change about the way the sheltered workshop served the people we support?
Just the flow, right? Having consistent work for the people we serve, being consistent for them,
Yeah,
for their learning, their ability to find jobs in the community. Those were the things that I wish I could have changed a little bit more.
absolutely. Yeah. And having lived through it now and seeing some of the disappointment and frustration and lack of understanding, it's one thing to, say, oh, well, this is a consequence of a just-in-time inventory model. Okay, for somebody who needs it broken down in a more simpler form, it doesn't make a ton of sense. What they experience is that they love working
Mm-hmm.
and they can't do that for the next 3 weeks, and they don't understand why.
Right.
They're showing up with the desire to work, but they're being turned away. So I can definitely see the frustration of that. So, in your decade here at the Arc of Greater Boone County, how have attitudes changed? Not only inside our walls here at the Arc, but in the greater culture? Because, I don't know that we touched on this, but you've done so many different things here at the Arc. You've started as a direct support professional at our PCS side of day services, which serves some of our people who have the most advanced needs and require the most advanced level of support. you've also been a manager over the day services program over there. And then you transferred over here as a team lead to help coordinate the workshop. So you've seen a lot of what this particular world has to offer. You obviously, in your role now, you're meeting regularly with the residential care teams, you're meeting with guardians and family members who are trying to support the individuals we serve here. What has been the biggest attitude shifts that you've observed in your time here?
Well, I think there hasn't I mean, there has been change, don't get me wrong. The inclusion part of it is something we strongly need to still work on. People in the community getting to know who we are here at the Ark, that's changed a lot. I used to be able to be in the community and talk about the Ark, and people would say, "What's the Ark?"
Yeah.
And now that's changed a lot. We still have a lot of work to do to get the word out, but inclusion and just the respect for people with disabilities, and the disability not defining the person,
Yeah.
right? There we have so many capable people that could work in the community. It's just getting word out and making that happen.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and that's perfect. That led into my final question of like, okay, what's still in front of us to do? And I think you said that beautifully. And, I just want to echo that is, I think people, especially if you don't have a lot of exposure to people with disabilities, the first thing you see is the disability. And what I would caution folks is don't perseverate on that. Don't get stuck on that, because the reality is the ability is so much greater than the disability.
It is.
And if you can't mentally work past the disability, you're going to miss real opportunities of where these individuals can not only contribute, but contribute in a way that legitimately helps their employers, right?
Absolutely.
Because
Mhm.
Mr. Canary would have failed. I mean, frankly, Mr. Canary would have never started if it weren't for the capabilities of workers with disabilities. So I just want to echo that to anyone who's listening to this podcast. If you're on the fence or you've never maybe considered employing people with disabilities, reach out to your local community organization. It may be an ARC chapter, it may be another disability services provider like the ARC, but start that conversation and get to meet individuals. Have an idea of what the tasks are that need to get done. Don't get hung up on a specific way that you think it has to get done. Look at what the core requirements really are and what the final result needs to be. And then let people with disabilities creatively solve those problems and just show you what they're able to do in those jobs. Because, there's a lot of people out there who think, oh, I'd love to have help with this 2 to 3 hour a week job, but if I put a job post up for 2 or 3 hours a week, nobody's going to be interested. That is a great opportunity for workers with disabilities to come in and give you their absolute best for those 2 to 3 hours a week. And that initial opportunity at community integrated employment is huge, because I think we've all heard kind of that joke, right? Of, being told that, you need, experience before you can land your first job, right? Like
Yep.
how does that work? So
Mhm.
I encourage people, take a chance, take that leap of faith, and you're not going to be disappointed. Christy, this has been so much fun. Thank you for not only coming on today, but for your years of service to the people we support. Listeners, show Christy some love in the comments section. Share your thoughts on what we discussed today. Maybe you have a related experience you'd like to share with us. The comment section is a great place to do that. We welcome your feedback. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our podcast so you can receive notifications every time we share a new episode. Be sure to check out the links in the show notes for more information. And thank you for joining us for this episode of the Canary Cast. Remember, buy a feeder, create a job. See you next time.